President Trump holding his sixth cabinet meeting later this morning. He hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House yesterday. The pair discussing the progress towards a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release. A special envoy, Steve Witkoff, heads to Doha for talks this week. Now, Netanyahu suggesting the U.S. and Israel could work to relocate Palestinians to neighboring nations, saying he believes the president can work out a broad peace deal in the Middle East. He also surprised the president with a Nobel Peace Prize nomination. When asked about a two-state solution, Netanyahu said this. Watch.
Do you think that there can be a two-state solution that creates an independent?
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that age-old question, two-state. Go ahead. You give him your honest answer.
I think Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. And that means that certain powers, like overall security, will always remain in our hands. I think we can work out a peace between us and the entire Middle East with President Trump's leadership. And by working together, I think we can establish a very, very broad peace that will include all our neighbors.
Well, Netanyahu is also going to be meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance and House Speaker Mike Johnson today. Those are going to be separate meetings, and then other Congress members throughout the day today. Tomorrow, he's going to speak with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth before he departs Washington on Thursday. Joining me now, Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, good morning to you. I'd like to get first your reaction to what you saw play out last night at the White House.
Well, certainly this is their third meeting, but this comes on the heels of obviously a major strategic change in the Middle East, certainly resulting from Iran's military defeat in the 12-day war by Israel, and President Trump and the United States decisively supporting the strike on Iran's nuclear program, which sets that program back for years. That really is the backdrop what's taking place here. And you add to that Hamas and Hezbollah being decimated, the United States pushing back on the Houthis and reopening international traffic on the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, and the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria. What we're really seeing being played out right before our eyes is a new strategic framework for the Middle East, which will likely lead to normalization of relationships with Israel and many of the countries in the Middle East. It is historic what has taken place here.
Well, and if you look to countries in the region that certainly would benefit from peace, that would be the Saudis, that'd be Qatar, that'd be the UAE. I thought that was interesting that the president talked a little bit about that last night, but also I thought it was interesting how when the issue of the Palestinians came up, that President Trump said, they need to be moved out. I mean, let's be honest here, Gaza is decimated. Gaza is destroyed. It's not safe for these people that are there, these women, these children. But who takes them, General, I think is the problem. Because it's not like the Egyptians have open arms for the Palestinians or any of the other countries in the region. What happens here?
Well, I think there's a new operative here in a sense that the issue on the table for the Arabs was always a pathway to a Palestinian state. I think there's a new operative, and that is end the war in Gaza and help to rebuild Gaza and then resettle the Gazans. Whether they move or not, or where they move, that remains to be seen. But if this is the new predicate, instead of a Palestinian state, then I suspect that normalization with Saudi could move along quite rapidly, more than people expect, with those two conditions, the end the war in Gaza and a plan to rebuild Gaza and resettle the people. That, if it does happen, so our audience understands, if Saudi Arabia normalizes relations with Israel, all the other Arab states who have not, two already have, UAE and Bahrain, will follow suit. That is a paradigm sea change in the Middle East that will lead to increased stability and peace for sure. And we're on the cusp of all of this happening. Syria, for example, I mean, it's quite amazing. It's having a non-aggression pact discussions with Israel, non-aggression pact between Syria and Israel. Who would have ever thought of such a thing? But al-Shara, the president of Syria, is engaged directly in those kind of talks. So we're moving forward here for sure. Iran, the administration wants to have negotiations with Iran, and the start point has got to be voluntarily dismantle whatever is left of your program. Let independent inspectors come in and view that. That's got to be the starting point. I suspect the Iranians, though, Cheryl, where they are, is they're assessing the damage, and I think they fully intend to recover and rebuild their nuclear program and use diplomacy and negotiations as a cover to do just that. The Trump administration, certainly, as well as Israel, are all on to that tactic because that's what they've used in the past. But there still is some potential here that some kind of normalization could take place with Iran if they're willing to dismantle that entire program that remains, whatever there is left of it, and open it up to independent inspections.
Yeah, because, I mean, we'd heard
These
from...
things were certainly unthought. We're not even thinking of prior to the 12-day war that took place. So, you know, we've seen another historical example. When you step forward and use military force against something that is really bad in the world happening, World War II, Nazi Germany, Japan, etc., and you use military force to stop it, good things can come from it. And we're in that phase right now. Good things are coming from this.
Yeah, no, and my apologies for interrupting. I was reminded when you were speaking about how frustrated Secretary of State Marco Rubio was right after these strikes. It was the day after. He was speaking with Maria, actually, and he was saying, you know, enough of this passing notes back and forth, and we'll let you into the country and inspect our sites when it's convenient for us, which never was happening whatsoever. Real quick before you go, sir. The U.S. envoy to Lebanon is backing a response from Beirut that came out yesterday. It's a Washington proposal. It details a complete disarmament of the Iran-backed terrorist group Hezbollah. This is in exchange for withdrawal of Israeli troops from the southern region. Now, the Trump administration has been hinting that Lebanon could be added to the list of nations who have normalized ties with Israel under the Abraham Accords, General. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. I mean, more work needs to be done here. But what is happening here strategically is that Hezbollah has been decimated, and their military influence and political influence in Lebanon has been reduced rather dramatically. Even though there's a ceasefire there, they moved forces south, and Israel has struck them a number of times to push them back. So it is potentially possible because the government in Lebanon, as a result of decapitating Hezbollah, is getting stronger. And certainly there may be opportunities for potential normalization with Israel. That's going to be tough to be sure because Hezbollah is so invested in that government, in its legislature, politically, as it had been militarily and diplomatically. But nonetheless, a sea change has taken place in Lebanon, and it's positive. Government stronger, Hezbollah weaker.
General Jack Keane, it is always a pleasure to speak with you, sir. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl.
All right, we'll see.